2009 was a year of progress on the roof of the world. In April, a ceremony took place in Jorkang Monastery for those applying for the highest degree among Doctors of Divinity. This was the most impressive ceremony held in a monastery of the Gulagpa sect of Tibetan Buddhism in Tibet. In August, living Buddha Dortan Dawa fulfilled his wish to build a stone scripture Dagobah on Medicine King Hill in Lhasa. On the circumambulation path of Bakor Street in Lhasa, every day people can see a solemn-looking Lama chanting scriptures and kowtowing all the way. He is affectionately known as the kowtowing Lama. Local people know he is living Buddha Dortan Dawa, who engraved scriptures on Medicine King Hill. They admire his devoutness, give him alms, and receive his blessings. Living Buddha Dortan Dawa engraved scriptures on Medicine King Hill for 15 years. Moved and inspired by him, many artisans from various parts of Tibetan inhabited areas volunteered to take part in this project. They weathered hardship before they could build a stone Dagobah engraved with the entire Buddhist canon. The Buddhist canon includes Bakgya and Bastangya, with a total of more than 4,500 scriptures and treatises. It was a phenomenal task to engrave so many scriptures on stones word by word. This ambitious project was finished with the support of a great many believers, the work of stone engravers, and the conviction and tenacity of living Buddha Dortan Dawa. The scripture Dagobah built by living Buddha Dortan Dawa is close to the Crag of Thousand Buddhas on Medicine King Hill. The entire hill was engraved with images of Buddha of different sizes, as well as the 6-syllable charm. It is said that the earliest images of Buddha date back to the days of Sungstam Gambor in the 7th century. About a dozen years ago, living Buddha Dortan Dawa came to Lhasa to pay homage to Buddha from his hometown in Dergur, Sichuan province. In front of the Patala Palace, he pledged to build a Dagobah at Medicine King Hill. He stayed here to work day and night. This is the living Buddha's temporary accommodation in Lhasa. Because he sat on the ground in the open air when he engraved scriptures all the year round, living Buddha Dortan Dawa caught serious rheumatism. His hands and feet were deformed, yet he had no time to go to the hospital. Every day, he simply dressed his wounds by himself.
Then done Tung Gonda, there's a descent ne Tondo Yolere. Then a Tayona Kukumba Nandu do then a Nanayon. Roa Market Saint Jetonchella. Pants to go to the Tanga Machi Pochi. Shana Shanana Nazir Nazir. Tariguni, right?
The living Buddha's illness worsened. In order not to delay the project, he had to hire a pedicab every day when he went out, although he thought it was too luxurious. To express gratitude to the Buddhist believers for their role in building the Dagoba, living Buddha Dortan Dawa meticulously engraved a statue of Sakyamuni as a reminder for future generations.
Tane tangala montu tepa ni. Ta dede. Tane ta tega como tegande le caso gore. Tane deno la como mombo yona le ka o chonjo more. Como nyunyu ina le ka kale kalere. Te chag mare.
The mammoth religious structure was constructed by Buddhist believers. They took part in the entire course of construction, from the planning to investment, from construction to completion. It is a miraculous feat.
Me na te zone ni nga song ridula ni ba nya yu nyang ko chuje la ni pe ge san jia tong jie de nong jie la na me ba zu bu song jie ge gong bong ren bo jie to ge wi che de ni son no de la tong ne za za gu gu zu ni ta jia yu kan ji chen mo de yin ge ze ge za na de pe wa ra shu njom bra ba wi che tan chen ba do njom bra ba wi che tan chen ba do
One day in October 2009, living Buddha Dortan Dawa completed the statue of Sakyamuni, a project of special significance. Alone, he held a simple ceremony to consecrate the Dagoba, praying for the permanent stay of Buddha and the Bodhisattvas here, world peace, and the prosperity of the country and the happiness of the people. On July the 25th, the 11th Panchen Ardoni, Choygia Gyabor, was initiated into the senior stage of monkhood in Tashil Hunpo Monastery. 79 representatives from 39 major monasteries of the 5 sects of Tibetan Buddhism in Tibet attended the ceremony. In September, the incense maker Lungri Gyantshor asked the Bodhisattva in the Tibetan King's Cave to practice sacralization for the newly made incense. On the 1st and 15th days of every month in the Tibetan calendar, a great many Buddhist believers can be seen along the circumambulation paths in the holy city of Lhasa. Holding strings of beads in their hands, they stretch across the ground to express their devoutness in the direction of the Holy Land. Among them is Lungri Gyantshor, a Tibetan incense expert. Lungri Gyantshor grew up in a family of Buddhists and became a devout believer. His 2 brothers are monks, and he was once eager to join their world too.
어디 아주 메사데 에데 종료를 다데 종도 삼아 지고도 다 나랑 거는 제는 아주 나랑 거는 제는 다 지고도 잡아를 지지 잡아지야 지도 삼아다 알레 지고도 소소 레드 먹어서 아니 맞죠 없지 아니 지고 잡아지야 마치비지 다 알레 지도 가요 지 가르쳐 버는 다 알레 야는 미다 디치토데 가 펜비 잘라다 침 펜비 리아직 채우라
The Uyghur tongue clan that Lungri Gyangshaw belongs to has made Tibetan incense for centuries. You heard from the older generation that the Tibetan people began to burn incense in the days of Sungsam Gyambor more than 1,000 years ago. His family preserves an ancient book which contains many formulas for making Tibetan incense. As the saying goes, burn incense and pray to Buddha. Incense is closely entwined with Buddhist belief. It is the most important type of offering that believers use to express their devoutness. In Buddhist classics, incense is likened to the virtue of Buddhists observing the commandments. The solemnity of burning incense is a phrase that describes those scripture chanters who have been influenced by the merits and virtues of Buddha.
Shanghai, the Pearl of the Orient. Here the past meets the present, and now the future. Join Travelogue in Shanghai and stroll with us along the historic Bund. Feel the pulse of a sophisticated city that never sleeps. And come with us to the Shanghai Expo. For where to go and what to do in this iconic city where East meets West, watch Travelogue's 6-part series from Shanghai.
In this sense, incense makers are closest to the Buddhist world among ordinary people. Lungri Gyangshaw is proud of this. Tibetan incense is used to worship Buddha, but it is also burnt to eliminate bad smells and clean the environment. Based on the traditional incense recipe, Lungri Gyangshaw is developing a new type of medicinal Tibetan incense.
매상 배양도 가르쳤잖아. 직서 나도 주고 배워. 아니스 가르쳤나 안주 디샤인비나 내염다. 안데 니마기 로네스다. 다 디샤인비나야 천능년 반대도 어딘서 가야 뱀마서야 보였어.
Lungri Gyangshaw's incense workshop is located in Toyinpa Township, Nyemo County, about 100 kilometers away from Lhasa. 1,300 years ago, Great Master Thunmi Sambotar of the Tubor dynasty invented the water mill for making incense and the first generation of Tibetan incense. Today, local incense makers are still following the traditional craftsmanship. They start the watermill to grind different kinds of fragrant wood into powder and then shape it into incense bricks. They add different kinds of perfume and Tibetan medicine to the incense bricks according to the different uses of the incense. Everything is done by hand. People in the Tibetan inhabited areas believe that Nyirmo incense is the best incense used to pray to Buddha because it is made according to an esoteric recipe handed down from the great master Thunmi Sambota, and there is no substitute for the mountain spring in Nyirmo. In the northern suburbs of Lhasa there stands a monastery built on a huge rock. This is Pa Bang Ka Monastery, also known as the Tibetan King's Meditation Cave. The story goes that it was built under the auspices of Sungstam Gambor. It was here that Great Master Thunmi Sambota created the Tibetan script. He presented the first Tibetan incense he had made to Sungstam Gambor when he was meditating here. From then on, incense makers generation after generation in the Tibetan inhabited areas believed that it was the greatest honor for them to present their own incense to the bodhisattvas in the Tibetan King's Meditation Cave. After it is sacralized here, the Tibetan incense becomes the best type of offerings to Buddha. Today, Lungri Gyaltsho has brought the Tibetan incense he has just made to this place to be consecrated. According to the scripture, Buddha's teachings on ethics and incense, a virtuous self-cultivator exudes fragrance from the depths of his heart. The fragrance from the depths of one's heart spreads in 10 directions of space. All Buddhas can smell it. Lungri Gyaltsho believes that although he is not a monk, he can make up for it by making incense. It is the highest honor for him because he can stay closest to Buddha by doing this work. On November the 9th, Tibetan believers celebrated Descension Day, their annual traditional religious festival. In December, the annual service of debating on scriptures took place in Gyaltsho Monastery in Chushu County, Lhasa. Over 200 monks from Drepung Monastery, Sera Monastery, Ganden Monastery, Jokang Monastery and Radud Monastery attended the service. At the end of the year, living Buddha Tenzin Dorje of Yamriga Monastery finished his first album of songs.
Om Amare Nitwe Tayiso Om Amare Nitwe Tayiso Om Amare. This is Tenzin Dorje, inheritor of Mila Raspa's Thousand Songs, an item of intangible cultural heritage in Tibet. Tenzin Dorje is a living Buddha of the Drigong Kagyupa sect of Tibetan Buddhism. At this moment, he is recording his first album of songs. Tenzin Dorje is in his 20s. When he was a child, he was extraordinarily clever and bright and interested in religious rites. At the age of 8, he was designated as the reincarnated soul boy by Drigong Kyungstan, Prince of Dharma. He began his monastic life and took on the important mission of cultural inheritance for the Drigong Kagyupa sect of Tibetan Buddhism. Tenzin Dorje's father used to be a living Buddha of the same sect,
but he resumed his secular life, got married, and started to devote himself to the protection of cultural relics. The monastic education of Tibetan Buddhism is very rigorous. It is a hard road for a child to grow into an eminent monk of great virtue. He must study many scriptures and practice Buddhist rules, braving hardship for a long time. While receiving traditional training, Tenzin Dorje showed a deep interest in modern science and technology. When any important Buddhist service takes place in the monastery, he records it on video. This mask was made by Tenzin Dorje's father, Ingad Kuan. He is also one of the inheritors of intangible cultural heritage of Tibetan Buddhism. Tenzin Dorje is a leading dancer of the religious dance festival in Drigong Tea Monastery every year. He leads the Dance of Vajra. The ornaments from top to toe were made especially for him by his father, living Buddha Ingad Kuan.
다 지주 밀레베 코리아 조르반 다디 루규르고 시라유베 드레기 나주 표기다 구르기다 규제 토네 제비는 루규 체rin고 주베 드레지 대디인도 대 다닝 안주다 지공기 아니 무미리네 슈샤 망부지다 정어린베 무미리네 슈샤니 네리 안티 생긴 안주 개거린베 무미리네 슈샤나 추르와
Around the year 1040, Venerable Milarepa was the second leader of the Kagyupa sect of Tibetan Buddhism, and he made important contributions to the development of Tibetan Buddhism. Milarepa had a unique way of preaching. He often taught his disciples by singing. Over 500 of Milarepa's 1,000 songs have been handed down to this very day. Yamrigam Monastery, where living Buddha Tenzin lives, stands on a mountain over 4,000 meters above sea level, 80 kilometers from Lhasa. As a monastic leader of the new generation, he's been pondering how modern means of science and technology can be used to disseminate religious culture.
터겹치야디 개심샤샤 성도 아니 고변나리아 롭제 TV네레 지 안주는그 농예대야기디 잘라디다 아니 지 옆제 가시 배주단제도 제롭전 처벌을 가해서는 안주 수균을 롭전 치단디 맛이 야오시라요 여러분.
After a month's work, Tenzin Dorje finished his album of 1,000 songs. He did everything for the album, from fundraising, singing, orchestration and cover designing. He was overjoyed when he saw the printed CD cover. The incarnation of living Buddha Poblo of the Drigong Kagyupa sect of Tibetan Buddhism dates back more than 300 years. Today, Tanzin Dorje, the seventh living Buddha Poblo, is faced with the important task of rejuvenating the monastery and disseminating Buddhist doctrine. What should he do to prove worthy of the great trust placed on him by his predecessor?
아니 먼저 캔 슈죠로 캔 슈디 아니 다 리사르가 금네 도균 중에 제래야 단도도 아니 도체 샹토야 말 디르 땅안 산에 되게 아니 망초 토네 이네리 아니 공배 슝기 토네 이네리 아니 안저 공배나로 슈니기 긴든도 용기다 여기 치지 토네 난저 딱 공배디 돈에 뉴토라스 용기 민민들의 슈유스